with X, we have to look at the whole. So center front length from high point shoulder grades 3/4 of an inch. That means from this point up here all the way to the bottom, we have to somehow come up with 3/4 of an inch. So to figure out how this 3/4 of an inch is going to be distributed, we need to look at all of our other drops. So we have front neck drop, back neck drop, waist placement. Oops. Try that again. Hip placement and armhole drop. Okay. So let's look at our smallest drop, okay, from high point shoulder. Our drop that's closest to high point shoulder, which would be our front neck drop and back neck drop. Okay. So for the front neck drop, we have 1/8 of an inch all the way for all sizes. So that means from high point shoulder to front neck drop, we have 1/8 of an inch. So essentially what I'm saying is that right here, we have a slash line that's 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so we're going to call this 1/8 of an inch. All right. Then I have my, next up below that is my armhole drop. So let's look at our armhole drop. We have 1/4 for all sizes. So the armhole drop is measured from high point shoulder to the bottom of the armhole. So I already have one slash line that's worth 1/8 of an inch. So to get to 1/4, I need one more slash line that's also 1/8 of an inch, right? That gives me a 1/4, 1/8 plus 1/8, right? Okay, so we have covered our front neck drop, our armhole drop. Now let's go to our waist placement. So from high point shoulder to waist, we need 1/2 an inch for all sizes. So again, I'm not going from origin point right now. I'm just looking at the specs. So from high point shoulder to waist placement, I need to capture 1/2 an inch. So I already have 1/8 and 1/8. I need 1/4. Okay. So I'm going to just copy this over, but I'm going to call this quarter. Okay. All right. Then for my hip placement, I have 0. That means that this distance, the hip, is going to move with the waist. Okay, so there's no slash line between here. Lastly, I have my whole dress length. So we said the whole dress length from high point shoulder to the bottom should be 3/4. And right now we have 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 is 1/2. So 3/4 minus 1/2 is 1/4. So I'm going to take this 1/4 and I'm going to put it here. Okay. Now we can use these slash lines that we placed ourselves based on the spec to figure out what the XY movements of each of these points are going to be. Okay, so why don't we start at 2 and 3? Okay, so 2 and 3 are our bottom lengths. So to get, now we're using our origin point, not high point shoulder. So to get from origin point to the bottom opening, we cross 1, 2 slash lines, which are each worth 1/4. So our value is going to be 1/2 an inch for all sizes. Okay. Now, keep in mind, we're now in the negative X quadrant. That means that our sizes that are getting larger are moving this way. They're coming outside of the piece and moving to the left, which we know is the negative value of X. And our smaller sizes are getting shorter and they're moving this way, which is positive. So we are going to have positive for our smaller sizes and negative for our larger sizes. So we're going to have 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, negative 0.5, negative, negative. And we're going to copy to our 3 rule. Okay. Now for the 4 rule, and the 5 rule in the x. So there's no difference in the x, right? Because we put no slash lines between 5 and 4. We're going from origin point past this first slash line, which is 1/4 inch. So that means the x value for 4 and 5 will be 1/4 inch. They will follow the same negative, positive pattern as 2 and 3. So we have 0.25, negative 0.25. Okay. Okay. 6 is on our y-axis. That means it's going to have a 0 and 7. So 7, although I have these slash lines here that I put, the 7 and the 8, we have to look at the spec to see if they're moving together. So the across front is 5 inches from high point shoulder for all sizes. There's no separate across front placement. That means that whenever the 8 moves, the 7 is going to move the same, okay? So we kind of, although we put these slash marks here to get they'll help us with our high point shoulder and they'll help us with our front neck drop. They don't really help us with our across front placement, okay? So whatever we figure out for the 8, we're going to also apply to the 7. So to go from origin point to the 8, we're crossing an 8th and an 8th, which is 1/4. We're now in the positive x quadrant. So our negatives, positives will be what we expect them to be. So we will have minus 0.25, minus 0.25, positive 0.25. Oops. Okay, and then we will copy to the 7. The 9 will have the same as the 8, so we're going to copy that here, right? We have to cross the same number of slash lines to get to the 8 and the 9. And the 10 will just capture this 1/8 of an inch slash line. Okay, so we'll have minus 0.125. Okay, for 11, if we look at our spec, our back neck drop has no movement. So one might think that we should use zeros. However, we know that our 8 and 9 are moving. So if the distance between 9 and 11 in the x direction doesn't change, then the 11 actually has to move with the 8 and the 9. So I'm going to type in the same value, x value for 9 will also be for 11. Okay, that way they move together. Same with the 4 and the 5. Anytime we have two rules that are moving together or placed from each other, they should have the same rule. Okay, we're going to save this, and then our next video will go through applying the grade.